Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be considering the question of, is there such a thing as too much magnification for an LPVO? Okay, um, so I've worked with lots of different scopes. Okay, some that I own, others that at different gun ranges that I've tried out. And I can tell you there's absolutely no such thing as too much magnification in an LPVO, okay? Especially, particularly if it's a first focal plane, okay? And the reason for that is because you can always dial it back if you need a wider field of view, okay? Now, there is such a thing as too much weight or too much length, okay? So this is the Pimary Arms 1 to 10 by 24 GLX, right? So this is a first focal plane scope. So this thing is about 12 inches long, and it weighs about a pound and a half. And I'm rounding off to a pound and a half because depending on what type of a mount you have on it, it might get a little bit heavier, a little bit lighter. Um, but I've done many videos on the 1 to 8 compact, right? So that is a even shorter, even lighter. That one only goes up to 8 power. And I remember, when there was a time when like 8 was like the high end of the magnification range on LPVOs, and people were saying, no, it's too much, too much. Stick with a 1 to 4 or 1 to 6, right? Even a lot of people saying a 1 to 6 was even too much at one point. And I'm going back like 10, 15 years, but at one point people were saying, oh, 1 to 6 is too much. Nowadays, I hear a lot of people saying that 1 to 6 is the sweet spot. One to the 8 and 9, the 8 and 10 are pushing it. That makes absolutely no sense to me. Okay, because again, unless the issue is weight or size. Okay, now that's no different than my everyday carry. Okay, so I carry a Glock 43, 6+1, so I got 7 rounds. There's no question that carrying a larger gun that holds 15 rounds, right, or maybe even an extended mag, right? There's no question that more rounds in a handgun is better. Okay, there's no question about that. But up to, like, I think 17 is like kind of sweet spot for Glocks. Once you go up to 22, I think that they tend to you start seeing some reliability issues, right? So Glock 17, I got tons of G17 mags. That's kind of like the sweet spot where you're getting maximum amount of rounds in the magazine, and you're getting great reliability. Now, would I like to carry 17 rounds with me around every day? Yes, I absolutely would. I think it would definitely be better. However, it's too much, okay, in terms of comfort, in terms of being able to sit down in the car seat, because most people, we drive, right, at least 2-3 times a day. So when I sit down in the car seat, I want to make sure that the magazine or the grip is not hitting the car seat, or the muzzle's hitting the seat beneath me. So that's why I carry a smaller gun. I carry a Glock 43. But there's no question that more rounds would be better, okay? It's just a convenience issue, okay? So same thing goes with an LPVO. There's no question that more magnification would be better, okay? Unless you just can't, unless you're in a situation where you just can't have that much weight on the gun. Now, I've always said that I think that the best setup for a general purpose rifle is the red dot with the magnifier, because you can always remove the magnifier, right? Like at night, you just take the magnifier off, put it in your backpack, and it's going to lighten the gun up. For general purpose, absolutely red dot plus magnifier. So an LPVO on the gun, okay, to me, I'm using the word special purpose here in the general sense, okay? If I have an LPVO on the rifle, okay, instead of a red dot and a magnifier, I'm looking to do certain things that I cannot do with a red dot magnifier, okay? Beyond just being able to, beyond just magnification, okay? Because with the magnifier, I can get up to about 6x, okay? So I have a Vortex 6x, works great, love it. Done many videos on that in my channel. But it only goes up to 6x. And I've been out to 500 yards with that. I've got nice tight groups. But if I want to go to 600 yards, or if I want to be able to identify, see, like, is that a gun, or is that, is it a knife, or is the person unarmed, or if you're trying to see something small, right, like maybe a head that's hiding behind a rock, yet, 6x at 500 yards is not going to cut it. 10x is a much better option. Okay, so yeah, so to answer that question, absolutely no 100%. Okay, more magnification on the LPVO is absolutely better. This goes up to 10x. I think the highest I've seen is the Adaball that goes up to 12, 1 to 12. I haven't had a chance to try that out. The main reason why I didn't buy it, where I bought this 1 to 10, because right now, like, I was recently in the market for a 1 to 10. I would have went 1 to 12. I just wasn't so crazy about that plum reticle design. I really like the Pimary Arms acss combat reticles. I like these better. So the only reason why I didn't go 1 to 12 is because of the reticle design in that. Yeah, more magnification better. In fact, I'm looking forward to the day when we get a 1 to 15 LPVO. Okay, I think that would be perfect, because now you got something that can really get you out to 1,000 yards. Okay, so you can put that on a 308 rifle, and now you have a lighter 308 rifle, as opposed to, like, on my 308, I got a 5 to 25, right, with this giant bell, big 50. Basically it's like 2.5 pounds on top of a 9-pound rifle. Okay, so I got like my 308, my AR-10 is basically like almost 13 pounds. So yeah, this would be an ideal scope. Like, if you got an AR-10 and you want to lighten that up, yeah, absolutely. If you're going to be moving around and you don't want like a heavy scope, this would be a perfect option, right? Like the 1 to 10. And in my opinion, like the LPVO is primarily a distance scope. Okay, because if we're doing like close quarter stuff, yeah, red dot much better. It's primarily a distance scope, but has a good close quarter capability. And one of the things I do not like doing is putting a red dot on top of a scope. Now, on a 5 to 25, right, I have no choice. I got to put the red dot on there. And that's not even so much for CQB. It's because if I'm looking at something that's 700-800 yards out there, I use the red dot to kind of get on target, and then when I switch down to the scope, right, because I've already found it on the micro optic. When I switch down to the scope, it's like the crosshairs are like right there, okay, as opposed to starting off in 5 power and now having to fish around a little bit, okay, in order to find the target. So on a 5 to 25, yeah, I gotta use a pistol red dot on top of that, or offset, or however I have it set up. But on LPVO, I hate the idea of having to put a red dot on this. I've tried it, didn't like it. In addition to it adding more weight, right, because you got the mount plus you got the optic, it also seems to snag on everything. You put a red dot on top of this, it just seems to be in the way, because it sticks out. Okay, no matter how you set it up, offset, on top, it sticks out. So I do not want to have a red dot on a scope if I can avoid it. And that's the great thing about the LPVO. I don't need it. It goes down to 1 power. And in an emergency situation, I've got something I can use in close quarters. And that's where the 1x... Now, normally I would keep this in 1x and then zoom up as I need to, right? Or even if I'm going to be shooting at distance, I'll use the 1x to find the target, zoom up, so this way, I'll zoom up this way. I can get on target. Again, it's easy for me to get on target. Now, is that an ideal setup for competition? No, in competition where like seconds count, yeah, it makes sense to have the red dot on the offset. Keep this on max magnification, and then people do the flip here. Yes, that's going to be faster in competition versus rotating this back and forth, right? This takes time to rotate. So in a competition setup, that makes sense. However, in a combat setup, I don't think that makes sense, because the rolling back and forth, first of all, you're going to keep this in 1x, and that's where you're going to be shooting it unless you engage at distance, and now you got to get yourself into a good stable position, then you'll roll it up. Ideally, if you're going to be shooting 500-600 yards, you need some time to set up that shot, okay, to get into position. You got to stalk your target a little bit, So you're not going to be under the time constraint that you are in the competition. Now, if you're being shot at, then yeah, you're just going to shoot back in 1x, or maybe just roll it up a little bit to 3x. You're not going to go all the way to 10x, you know, if you're in the middle of a gunfight, right? So yeah, so those are my thoughts on that. I think that there's no such thing as too much magnification on an LPVO, as long as it's a first focal plane where you can zoom back and you can you know, and you can use the reticle in lesser magnification, and you got that wider field of view. Okay, second focal plane. You know what? I've already covered this in videos. In a situation where like you got multiple targets, where you need to dial back, it becomes a real pain in the ass, right? Because now you have to be in a second focal plane. You have to be in max magnification for the bullet drop and range estimating to be correct. You know, and basically I don't recommend that anymore. If you're using like if your scope only goes up to 6x, and that's a second focal plane, that's probably going to be okay, because at its max magnification, you've got probably a wide enough field of view to work, right? But if you're in 10x, your scope goes up to 10x, yeah, that's got to be first focal plane, because there's a good chance that you may need to dial it back a little bit, and you want your bullet drop, and you need your range estimating to be accurate. Okay, so those are my thoughts on that. No, there's absolutely. I'll take all the magnification I can get. I'll take a 1 to 15 if I can get it. It's not a question of too much magnification. It might be an issue of too much weight, and too much length, and too much size, but that's a separate issue. But no, too much magnification on an LPVO, no such thing. All right, well, we're going to be taking a look at this Pimary Arms 1 to 10 by 24. Okay, so this is their GLS scope. They listed for about $800. I got it with 12% off. So with shipping, and actually the shipping was free with taxes, it came out to $750 for me. So here in 1X, it has an excellent CQB reticle, right? So I can transition from one target to the next, right, up close. And it has a combination of both outer posts and a large outer circle, which helps you find the center and get on target. I had the M8 Raptor, which it had the outer post, but it was lacking that outer circle, and that's where it was kind of falling short in CQB. This one with that outer circle, I mean, it's like perfect. Works great. Okay, so as I said earlier, CQB work is kind of like, you know, with an LPVO is like kind of like an oh shit situation on your way out. You know, you're running into shit that you don't expect. The only reason why I would have a 1.5 pounds on top of the gun is because I expect to be using this at distance. Okay, so let's zoom up. So let's say I got a target all the way out there. So let's zoom up to 10 power. So when I zoom up, you see the details of the reticle. So if I wanted to range estimate that, right, I can measure that. I can see that that is 4 mils tall, actually 4.5 mil tall, right? So I can range estimate stuff. I can use my bullet drop. But here's the thing: when I'm in 10 power, yeah, I can see that target all the way out there, but I can't. But all the other ones fell out of my field of view. Okay, so what I can do with this is, because it's a first focal plane, I can zoom back, and now I can see 3 targets, right? So I got 1, 2, and then this one here, 3. So if that's the one I think is a threat back there, right? Like I can cover that one, but I can also see the other 3. Okay, if I need to come back a little, so that was in like 4.5 magnification. Okay, if I also need to keep track of, let's say, this guy over here, right? So now I got this guy over here. Maybe he's a potential threat. So I can just dial back to the point where I can see him. Okay, now obviously he's at like CQB distance, so I'm in, where am I? I'm almost like at 2 magnification here. In order to be able to see that, actually I gotta go all the way down to 1. At 1, I can see him in the back there. I can see this here, like at the very edge of my But that's a really rare situation where you got to cover somebody, let's say, at CQB distance and also at further distance. The more likely scenario would be something like this, where I got 4 targets here, where I can kind of see all 4 targets, including that one at distance. Okay, so again, these are at very different distances now. Where am I? I'm at like 2 magnification there. So let's go in a little bit deeper. So now I got 3 targets here. Okay, so now I can cover those 3 targets. Now I'm at 3 magnification. Okay, so now if I got 2 targets I'm covering, right, at different distances. Okay, there I can kind of see them all. So that's at 4 magnification. So at 4 magnification, I can see the bullet drop, right? Because if that's the guy I gotta shoot back there, I'm gonna probably need to use the bullet drop, right? So I need to be so at this magnification, I can see the details in the reticle, and I can see this guy on the side. So this would be like a very typical situation that you might encounter, let's say at 300 yards, where let's say I got one guy at 300 yards, but another guy here at 200 yards, and you can be like zoomed up so that you can, you can focus on that one, but you can still set the focus back so that you can see this one. Right, and then if the situation changes where I don't need to worry about this guy for whatever reason, let's say somebody else is covering that guy, then I can just zoom in a little bit deeper. I can get there. Right now I'm at, that was 6. What was that? Yeah, 6. Well, that's 8. I'm looking at the down now. That's why you guys are. I'm bouncing around a bit. That's 8. And then that's 10. So that's why, like, in my opinion, there's no such thing as too much magnification on an LPVO that has first focal plane, because you can always zoom back to whatever field of view you need, and then the bullet drop is still accurate. There's one. See, at 1, yeah, it's really hard to hit that target. Like now, I'm looking through this camera adapter, which is tinted. So to me, it looks a lot darker than it actually is. Let me turn on the illumination for a second. All right, now, yeah, you can kind of going through the different dials. So that's setting 5. So today's like kind of like rainy, so like that's 9. So you see it a lot brighter today. When I did the video yesterday, like in the day, like in sunny day brightness, you're barely gonna be able to see that that red. I mean, you can barely see it. So this, like in the daytime, I would just keep this in the number 2 position, so that you can't see it at all. You're just using the etched reticle. But if you go indoors, like into a basement, yeah, you'll have illumination. Okay. So they really designed this well with this outer circle and inner circle. So that, again, I'm looking through a tinted glass. So right now I can't see the inner circle very well, but if I'm not looking at it through the camera adapter, I can see it well, even though right now I can't see it. So that, ordinarily, that inner horseshoe, right? We're talking about that was up. Ordinarily, that inner horseshoe that you've seen right there, if you didn't have the outer circle, you would really have a hard time finding it as you transitioned, let's say, from target to target. Okay, so with this outer horseshoe and those posts, it's really the outer horseshoe that I'm really using. It actually, when I don't have the camera adapter on that's tinted, I can actually find that inner horseshoe because of the outer horseshoe. Because it's kind of like just like the perfect size that I can kind of know where to expect it, and my eye goes there. And even if I'm like moving and shooting, I find that I'm actually able to pick up that inner horseshoe in like CQB moving and shooting. If the outer circle was not there, then there's no way I would actually be able to find it. So this is probably the best reticle design out there. It's the best I've seen anyway. And I've handled lots of scopes, and I also look at videos that other people post. And just because I have so much, so much experience using these scopes, I usually know what I'm looking for, and I have a good sense of how it's going to perform, and how the reticle is going to perform. I'm just switching back and forth so you guys can see how when you switch back and forth between targets, when you do target transitions, how this works. Now again, I'm looking at this through a camera adapter, so I'm actually a lot slower than I would normally be if I wasn't looking through the camera adapter. You see over there, like I can use the ranging ladder because right now I'm in 4 magnification. So I got that wider field of view, right? But because it's first focal plane, I can use the ranging ladder to figure out how far that target is. Which is not something I would not be able to do if that was second focal plane. If this was second focal plane, I have to be at max magnification. So I have to go all the way up to here, right, to use the ranging ladder, okay? But now I can't see the other 2 targets. See here, I can keep an eye on these other 2 targets here, but I can still use that ranging ladder. So, like I said multiple times already, if you've got a first focal plane scope, there is no such thing as too much magnification because you can always dial it back. Anyway, drop some comments. Let me know what you guys think. If you got a different opinion, let me know. And why, because the information goes both ways here. I learned, you guys learn a few things from me, but I also learn a lot of stuff from you guys in the comments. So drop some comments. I'll talk to y'all soon. One more point I wanted to bring out. One of the things I really like about LPVOs is that they do not have a parallax adjustment, okay? So this scope over here is a Pimary Arms 5-25. This does have a parallax adjustment. So you see here I got my pistol optic. I use my left eye, to find the reticle, get it on target. Then I'll shift to my right eye, and the crosshairs are automatically there, right? So right now it can be in 10 power, no problem, right? I use the red dot to get on target, and then switch eyes. Okay, so I'm on target right now. So if I change the magnification, right, from where I'm at, if I change it, like right now I just went up a little bit, well, that's out of focus, even though I'm looking at the same target. So now I gotta come back and I gotta adjust the parallax to get that right, okay? So now I'm at that target. Let's say I decide I wanna come back, okay, and get a wider field of view. Well, now I also gotta adjust the parallax, get that right. Okay, so even if I'm looking at the same target at the same distance, every time I change magnification, I also have to adjust parallax, okay? And if I change to a different target, right, as one that's closer, yeah, right in there, it happens to be in focus. If I zoom to a different level, now I gotta adjust the parallax again. Okay, so if the scope has a parallax dial, you're not just moving the magnification ring, you're also moving the parallax ring, and you have to do that. With an LPVO, I find that it's a lot more forgiving, right? Now, it may not be like perfect, like it's never, the focus is not going to be as perfect as if you have a scope that has a parallax dial, but it's usually good enough, right, to get like, I mean, I'll get hits, I'll get nice groups at 200 yards, I'll get nice groups at 500 yards. So the focus is good enough so that you can kind of work at all distances. If your scope has a parallax adjustment, you're kind of tied to it, right? You got to keep adjusting that parallax. So it really adds another level, another level of work. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I think just doesn't get attention often enough. Now, the other thing that's worth noting is with a scope that has, let's say, like an LPVO, right? No parallax adjustment. I've actually did a video where I tested this. I had a target out at 100 yards. I had the gun like stationary, like locked in. And what I did is with the gun basically locked onto the table, I got on target, and then I'm moving my head back and forth, okay? On an LPVO at 100 yards, the most I could get the reticle to move was 1 inch, okay? Now, on this scope here, which has the parallax button, if I am perfectly parallaxed and I did the same test, the same thing's happening. As I move my head a little bit back and forth, right, without the gun moving, it will still move up to 1 inch, okay? So even if the scope has a parallax dial, okay, and you move your head at 100 yards, it'll move up to 1 inch. Now, when I took this out of parallax, right, so that the focus wasn't perfect, now with this scope, if I moved my head by the same amount, now I was off by as much as 3 inches at 100 yards, okay? So this type of a scope, one that has, let's say, a 5 to 25, has to have a parallax adjustment. And if you don't set the parallax adjustment, I mean, your parallax can be really, really off, right? As much as like 3 MOA, okay? Whereas with an LPVO, if your head's, off, right, the most you're going to be off is by 1 inch, okay? Which is also the same, like, because so you're really not gaining anything. This scope has the parallax adjustment just so that it can get you to the same level that you are with an LPVO, where if you move your head, way off to the edge of the glass, you're going to be off by, let's say, 1 MOA. You're going to be off by 1 MOA. So if you add a parallax with this, right, if you don't adjust that dial, you can be off by as much as 3 MOA. So I did a detailed video on this. Just search my channel name and parallax testing, and you should find that video. But I think that's a point that doesn't get attention often enough. Like I said, I like LPVOs because I don't have to keep fussing with the parallax dial every time I change magnification.